And we're back.
We're back.
I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
And we're the Horror Guys.
This podcast video is in 3D coming at you. I hope you put your glasses on before you started watching.
And that includes you guys, podcast people. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not in 3D.
3D audio. We're cutting edge here.
3D audio.
Anyway.
All right. Well, anyway, this is episode 32, and we're going to start out with some movies.
We saw some movies.
We saw both Wolfman movies, the original from 1941 and the remake from 2010, the reboot.
And it's the Wolfman and the Wolfman.
The old movie is one word, Wolfman.
No, the old one is two
words.
No,
you're right.
The old one is two words.
The Wolf, space, man. And the new one is
the Wolfman.
Why does this matter?
Trivia.
It's technically not the same movie.
You learn things by viewing us.
And we'll also cover our drive-in classic, The Devil's Rejects from 2005. Lastly, our international feature is a sort of French-Australian thing called Revenge from 2017.
French-Canadian-Australian.
Yeah. They're covering it all in English, more or less.
Yeah, mostly.
Well, are we ready?
I'm ready.
Well,
are you ready?
Get ready, because here we go.
So we saw The Wolfman from 1941.
Yes.
Talk about a classic.
Not the first werewolf movie. That would be The Werewolf of London that we did several months ago. But this is the big one.
I always thought
this
was the first one, and it's not. It's the famous one.
Yeah, this is...
Lon Chaney Jr., Claude Rains, Bela Lugosi. What a cast.
Bela Lugosi in a small role.
Very small.
Plays a character named... What was his character name?
Oh, it's hard to remember.
Bella.
Bella, yeah.
Directed by George Wagner, written by Kurt Siodmak, who's the same guy who wrote The Invisible Man, I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, black and white still. I don't wonder when these start going color.
I don't know.
Don't know yet. We'll find out when it happens.
Yeah.
We'll let you know on these deeply important topics. Larry arrives at Talbot Castle. His father introduces Larry to Paul, an old friend who is now the local constable. Larry's brother John died recently in a hunting accident, and now Larry is the sole heir.
Back home after 18 years.
18 years away. And did we ever find out why he was away for 18 years?
No, his reasons were much less clear.
An adventure.
Yeah, he just kind of started adventuring and got carried away. Never came back.
Larry helped set up a huge telescope as his father is heavily into astronomy. We don't know what he does for a living, but he's very wealthy. He has a big old house.
He bees rich. That's what he does for a living. He's a rich guy.
He bees rich, okay.
Yeah, that's what he does.
Through the telescope, he sees a girl in town.
Yeah,
of course, first thing you do when you're
not looking at the sky, they're looking at the village.
Look at the village.
Up on the hill, down, and it's all the details of the village.
Yeah.
People picking their noses and grabbing themselves, grabbing each other. Okay, we don't see that, but that's what you'd be seeing.
Well, he goes to town and stops in the shop where he saw the girl. He uses a super creepy pickup line about seeing her in her bedroom and tells her about the earrings in her room.
He's a creeper.
It certainly comes off that way. It would be taken that way now.
It would be taken that way now. Back then, it was charming and
I saw you in your bedroom last night. I like those earrings.
Yeah. And I don't want to go out on a date. Well, I'll pick you up at 8. No, I don't want to. Well, I'll pick you up. And it was the whole
that's
vibe.
Just being an assistant. That still sort of works.
No, it was more of a 40s thing, and his behavior would be less acceptable today, all around.
While he's in the shop, he buys a heavy cane with a silver wolf's head. It's not just a wolf; it's also got the pentagram on it, so it's a werewolf cane.
Mm-hmm.
She recites the famous poem. Even the man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolf's bane blooms and the moon is pure and bright. I've heard that before.
Mm-hmm.
You'll hear it again multiple times.
Yes.
As he leaves the shop, the gypsies come to town. They come in their wagons. It's like a circus.
Bella and his mother.
Yeah. He and Gwen go to get their fortunes told that night. They take along Gwen's friend Jenny as a sort of a chaperone. While they wait their turn, they go for a walk in the fog. And it is really foggy.
Yeah, she's getting the friend's getting her fortune read, and Bella is doing the reading and sees a pentagram appear on her hand. She doesn't see it. Only we see it, and Bella sees it.
Yeah, because we learn later that it's the curse of the werewolf to see the pentagram on his next victim.
Mm-hmm.
So Bella knows he's going to kill her later, and he's not real happy about that.
But we don't know this yet. We don't know that Bella's a werewolf at this point.
We got a good idea.
Spoiler.
It's Bella freaking Lugosi.
Sorry,
He's going to do something.
We got spoilers, yeah.
Okay, so Jenny runs out. He says, "You better go home. You better run." So she runs out and is killed by a wolf in the woods. Larry runs to help and beats the dog to death with his new cane. And it is just a big dog. If you look at it, it's a wolf. It's a dog or a wolf. It doesn't look like a werewolf or a wolf man.
When he changes, he looks like a man who's wolfy, and this was definitely canine.
Bella turns into a wolf.
Maybe because he's been a long time at it.
Yeah, practice.
Yeah. And you become more wolfy the longer you go. The more times you change. Yeah.
So Larry beats the dog to death with his new silver-tipped cane. Unfortunately, he gets bitten in the attack.
And he turns back into a human, and that's an awkward situation. Like, it was a wolf. Well, we're not seeing a wolf here, sir. We're seeing this guy you beat to death. So there's questions that the police have.
Later, they find Bella in the woods with his head crushed by a heavy instrument. Mm-hmm. They also find Larry's cane laying on the ground next to him. The next morning, the bite mark on Larry is gone. He gets bitten in the chest, and he's got a big old nasty
trying to tell the police,
wound.
"No, it was a dog. Really?
Look,
see, he bit me. Whoops,
and
it's not there."
Oh, speaking of which, you video guys, we got these nice new shirts this week.
Yes.
The HorrorGuys.com t-shirts.
Yeah.
They look pretty good.
The merchandising.
Okay, well, anyway, the next morning, the bite mark is gone. Larry's father then explains it all away to the police, and his story makes a lot of sense, more or less.
Money gets you a lot of leeway.
Yeah, he says Larry and Bella went to Jenny's aid, and it was dark, and, accidents happen.
Yeah, confusion, and
Larry watches from the shadows as Mileva, the old gypsy mother, comes to talk to Bella's body in the crypt. Larry feels terrible about killing a man. Now he's starting to wonder himself. He knows it was a dog. But where'd this man come from?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't quite know.
He will learn.
Yeah. Gwen's boyfriend, Frank, comes in, and his dog takes an immediate dislike to Larry. Later that night, all the gypsies from miles around convene to throw a funeral party for Bella. Larry finally meets up with the old gypsy woman, who explains things to him. Mm-hmm. She gets the whole story in.
Yep.
She offers him a pentagram amulet to ward off the curse, but he doesn't really completely believe her. He tells Gwen all about this and gives her the pentagram for protection. He thinks it'll protect her from him, just in case. He doesn't believe it, but he sort of does, too.
Yeah, just in case.
He knows.
Yeah.
He can feel it.
Mm-hmm.
The gypsies, meanwhile, are all freaking out, leaving town. Larry runs home and starts examining himself as he gets hairier and hairier.
Which I really don't understand the freaking out, because Bella's been a gypsy for how long? I mean, a werewolf, and
maybe they kept it secret.
All of a sudden,
we don't know what his story was. Maybe they kept him chained up every month. Well, not that time.
Not that night.
Yeah.
No.
We don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know that.
Kind of an odd reaction. Like, suddenly they're freaking out because this guy's a werewolf, but it was okay when one of them was.
Yeah.
What? Okay.
So the Wolfman goes out to the cemetery and kills the gravedigger. Paul, the policeman, tracks the footprints to Larry's bedroom window, where Larry wakes up the next morning. He tells everyone that it's a werewolf, not a regular wolf like the police think. The doctor tells Sir John that there's something wrong with Larry, and he should leave town for a while. He's got this mental issues, he's under a lot of stress from killing Bella, and maybe he just thinks he's a little... Maybe he just thinks he's a wolf. Schizophrenia.
Just a little touched. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That night, the Wolfman gets caught in an animal trap.
Oh, and what a trap. It's this huge wooded area. They set a trap, like one trap.
Big old
literally,
bear trap.
The spring-loaded. And guess who walks along and steps right in that one bear trap? Maybe there were others they didn't show.
Maybe.
But they made it look like they were just putting one. We're setting a trap. And they said a trap, not traps.
You put it right in the middle of the werewolf trail and they'll come right to it.
Yeah. It was a lucky catch.
The gypsy woman reverses the curse for a few minutes just to help him get out of the trap. He gets out of the trap just in time to avoid the hounds. really dumb hounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He walks right by them.
Yeah. They get to the trap and sniff and like, oh, we don't know.
If dogs could talk.
Yeah.
He goes to see Gwen, and he sees the sign of the pentagram in her hand. So he runs out.
Yeah.
She's next. Larry tells everything to Sir John, who ties into a chair that night. Sir John has to go hunt with the men, but Larry tells him to take the silver-handled cane with him anyway, just in case.
Good thing he did.
Sir John confronts the gypsy woman, who fills him with doubt. The old lady tries to save Gwen, but Gwen won't listen. Gwen runs right into the Wolfman. It's a giant forest, and of course she runs right to him.
A lot of coincidence.
And the
like
Wolfman attacks her. Sir John hears the commotion and intercepts the attack and kills the monster with the cane. It's so much easier to beat him to death with a cane than it is to use like a bullet.
And then he becomes human again. And at the end, they oh, well, there was a wolf here, and he died heroically saving Gwen.
The wolf must have attacked her, and Larry came to the
Larry
rescue.
came to the rescue, and yeah, that's the story.
The end.
The end. Yeah.
We'll never see the werewolf again.
No, never ever.
Well, the iconic foggy woods scene is nearly as well known as the story itself.
And they certainly use that in
They
this.
used it a lot.
Uh-huh.
Claude Rains is completely reasonable and sensible throughout the movie, offsetting Larry's whiny crybaby attitude.
I thought he was really good as the father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're going to turn into a monster, that's the guy you'd want on your side. He's not all judgy like these guys usually are.
Yeah.
He basically Larry tells everyone that he's a werewolf, but no one believes him but the gypsy. I thought it looked pretty good. The first time he turns into a werewolf, you see his feet turn furry. It's sort of it morphs into a furry legs, and then it pans up and you see his head has already changed. So you don't see his face. Do we ever actually see him become the werewolf? I know when he dies, we see him become human backwards.
Unbecome it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of minimal on the special effects.
A little bit.
But what's their work?
Implied.
So it worked pretty well.
Yeah, it did.
You like it?
I did, overall, yeah.
Comparing to the other werewolf movie, Werewolf of London from 1930
way
something?
better. I like it way, way better than that.
Yeah, definitely better.
Hey, did you notice Larry was wearing a white undershirt at night? The moon is rising, and he's starting to feel weird, and he's like hot, and so he takes his button-down shirt off, and he's just got a white tank top on. And then he does the change, runs
The next
out.
thing you see is the werewolf wearing a black button-up shirt.
A dark button-up shirt. Like, really? He didn't. Surely the werewolf did not.
When was the last time you saw a
did not
werewolf running
stop.
around in the woods wearing a wife beater?
But that's what he was wearing when he changed. So a little goof there, I think. Yeah.
Well,
But forgivable. All in all, I liked it.
yeah. If that's the biggest plot hole, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
Speaking of plot holes,
Yeah.
we also watched the new remake of The Wolfman, 2010.
Wolfman.
Directed
All
by
one word.
Joe Johnston, written by Andrew Kevin Walker and David Self, stars Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, and Emily Blunt.
It follows the basic story.
Mostly.
Same basic characters.
No gypsies. Yeah, there were.
Yeah, there were.
Yeah, there
A whole
were.
bunch
Oh,
of
yeah.
gypsies. Yeah.
In the beginning, anyway.
But the gypsy, well, spoilers. There's going to be spoilers in this.
There's always spoilers.
Yeah. The gypsy this time is not the werewolf.
Yeah, things change.
Yeah. Things were changed around. But the basic outline, there's gypsies. There's Talbot coming back after 18 years with meeting again with his estranged father in this huge estate over the village. And
So it's been 70 years since the original Werewolf. We can assume everybody's seen it. Before we get into this one, thumbs up, thumbs down, did you like it?
I give it a thumbs up. I liked it
Better
the
or
second
worse
time.
than the first one? Better. If you could only pick one of the two movies. You liked this better than the original.
I did. And this is my second viewing of it. I saw
Mine
it when
too.
it came out, and I liked it better the second time viewing it.
I think I liked it better the first time viewing it, not knowing what was going to happen.
I knew what was going to happen.
This is my second time
and
also.
I liked it, yeah.
Okay. Well, we start out with the classic Universal Studios logo from the 1940s, just modernized a bit. They're very
They brought it
retro on
back.
this one.
Yeah.
Because this whole...
Well, they were trying to revive the whole line.
The whole Monsters franchise,
And
Dracula and
mixed.
Frankenstein would have been coming.
Yeah. Wasn't a big hit, though.
So they made the Wolfman. They made that horrible Mummy movie.
Mummy, uh-huh.
Was that it? That is it,
I
right?
think that's all they've done.
At least so far.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we get the famous poem again before anything else. Even a man who is pure as heart, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
We begin in 1891. A man is hunting in the woods and is viciously attacked by a werewolf. And the credits roll.
And the attacks are vicious and brutal and bloody in this.
Very.
They really updated that.
Yeah, in the original one, we had Jenny and Bella and the gravedigger and maybe a cop.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, including Larry at the end, maybe 5 deaths.
This has
A
dozens
lot more.
Dozens.
Yeah, many dozens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the credits roll. We don't know who that guy that died was yet, but it turns out later on that is Larry's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Gwen shows up at Lawrence's Theater. He's a world-class Shakespearean actor.
Which is actually a funny story.
And you should hear that funny
Can
story.
I give that
Go
away?
right ahead.
Yeah, because he's standing there doing the skull scene from Hamlet.
Alas.
Alas, I knew him, Horatio. And he's just phoning it in. The worst
really
Hamlet.
bad.
Oh, it's just bad. And and he's supposed to be a world class, like the greatest actor in America. And
Everyone's
he's on
heard of him. He's famous.
a special tour in London doing Hamlet. And it's just the scene that they show him doing is just terrible. Benicio
And he's
del Toro.
starring with Anthony Hopkins, who could have given him a pointer or two.
Yeah.
It's like he wasn't
you'd
even
think.
trying there.
Yeah. He would just phoning it in. And this is the full uncut version. There is a cut version where they don't show that scene. And just refer to him. Oh yeah, he's doing Hamlet, and he's this great actor. And,
Yeah, if you do have the option to get the uncut version, get that.
oh yeah, it's got more gore,
a
more
couple
killings,
of little
more
scenes
stuff.
in it. Yeah, it's
more
worth it.
more stuff. Yeah, for sure.
So Gwen shows up at the theater, and she explains that Larry's brother Ben has disappeared, and he needs to come home. Larry Lawrence is a famous Shakespearean actor and doesn't want to be bothered with his brother's disappearance. Still, Larry gives in and takes the train back home. A stranger on the train, played by Max von Sydow.
Uncredited.
It was, yeah. I don't remember him being in the theatrical version. I don't think he was.
I don't think I saw the theatrical version. I must not have.
I did see it in the theater, but he wasn't in.
I mean,
was one of the-
I did see the theatrical version.
He was one
because
of
it
the
was
add-on
theater.
scenes.
Yes.
It's a small scene, not a big deal.
Yeah,
but
it was cut.
who doesn't like him?
Cut for the theatrical version.
Gives him a silver-tipped sword cane with a wolf's head for a handle. Looks just like the one from the old movie.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes to his father's house in Blackmore, a huge but messy old place that isn't well maintained. Leaves blowing across the floor, and
Yeah, very.
he's got one
the place is-
servant
the
who's
place is
obviously
fun to-
overwhelmed.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
He explains that his brother's Ben's body had been found the previous day. The men in the village tell a story from 25 years ago that involved similar deaths. They beat that creature with silver bullets. Larry makes a few enemies at the local bar when he overhears them talking about his family and his mother, who
Was a
died
gypsy.
mysteriously.
Yes, and she was a gypsy, and they were saying
Yeah.
bad things about her, and so he punches one of the guys, and then they realize who he was.
Which
Oh,
pumps up his
that was
popularity very little.
that was Lawrence Talbot.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, no wonder he was mad. We were insulting his mother.
And this is Benicio del Toro with his bang cut, and he's mopey and pouty and moody throughout the movie.
I thought he was
In the
good.
first
I thought he was
movie-
good in the role, though.
In the first
Except for when
movie,
he does
Larry
Shakespeare.
Talbot was a world traveler. He learned how to fix things with his hands. He was good with
mechanic.
machines. He was
Uh-huh.
very
Yeah.
mechanical.
Yeah.
This guy, he's an actor, and he's moody and broody and boring.
And pampered, likes the good living, good life.
Yeah.
He's rich and boring.
I thought so.
I didn't think he was
Yeah,
boring.
I liked the original better.
Oh, I liked him.
That evening, Larry and his father, played by Anthony Hopkins, talk about the family history, and it's clear that the two of them have had disagreements in the past. Larry takes a medallion from his brother's body and tracks it to the local gypsy camp. While there, the camp is attacked by a werewolf.
Brutally.
Lots of people die violently and
Yeah.
very, very quickly.
Uh-huh.
Like slash, slash,
Yeah.
slash. Yeah, it's fast.
Mm-hmm.
Larry is bitten, but the townspeople drive off the monster before it kills him. He's like the only survivor out of dozens.
Which is a recurring theme through the movie. Because if you're bitten or clawed or anything,
You
you
become
become
a
a werewolf.
werewolf.
Every single one of these dozens of people die, apparently.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a very efficient killer.
Yeah. Except for Benicio.
So Larry recovers fairly quickly. He talks to Singh, the family servant, and Mr. Singh has silver bullets for some reason, just in case, he
Yeah,
says.
just in case.
The detective from Scotland Yard, what's his name?
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving, yeah.
He shows up finally.
Kept
Partway
expecting
through.
to be Mr. Anderson. Shows up from Scotland Yard to interview Larry. The inspector is not convinced that it was an animal. He suspects a lunatic. The local villagers come to arrest Larry. They think he's a werewolf. They kind of jump to the conclusion there, especially since half of these villagers saw him being attacked by a werewolf. He wasn't the werewolf. He didn't do it.
Somehow the Reverend rallies up this group of men and like, "Oh, you're the werewolf." No, you saw.
You saw me being attacked last night.
Yeah.
Of course, Larry and Sir John deny this, because he didn't do it.
Right.
Larry's senses are starting to get more acute. He hears things. He smells things. He can hear the horses like a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
That night, Larry notices that his wound is completely gone, and he starts to feel funny.
See, I thought that's one of the things that I really liked about the movie. They did such a good job, better job, fleshing this out. What that first month from the bite to the first change was like.
Yeah.
Gradually.
He was bedridden for a lot of it, but then
got
it
kind
healed
of
up.
sick like a bad flu.
Yeah.
And then he got stronger, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It fleshed out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
That was kind of
a lot more details.
Glossed over in the original.
He tells Gwen to leave town right away as it's not safe here. He seems to sense what's going to happen. The next day, the townspeople start arming themselves with silver. Samson the dog suddenly starts acting afraid of Larry.
Mm-hmm.
Sir John sneaks out in the dark, and Larry follows him to his mother's crypt. He finds, beneath the crypt, a chair with metal restraints. They both start to change into werewolves. However, Sir John locks himself inside the crypt, leaving Larry to massacre the villagers. The howling fills the village, and everyone hears it.
And then we find out that Dad was the werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The villagers catch up to
And he
Larry
likes
quickly, but things don't go as they expect. He kills them all. There's like a whole group of them going out on a hunting party, and there's none when we're done.
Wet and juicy. Yeah.
The inspector shows up and finds nothing but bodies. Larry wakes up in the morning as his father tells him he's done terrible things. The villagers then show up and chase him down and take him prisoner. Sir John is using Larry to throw the police off his own trail. Larry is sent to the sanitarium, where he's tortured and tormented severely.
And the police, the inspector, is still convinced that he's nuts.
Yeah,
he's
he's
crazy.
insane.
He's a
and so are the
madman did
doctors
this.
at the asylum.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah.
give him various psychological treatments.
Until the next moon.
Meanwhile, Sir John explains how he contracted the disease. He comes to visit him in jail. He explains everything and explains why he killed Larry's mother and his brother Ben, too.
She was going to take the boys away.
Sir John is starting
Well, he didn't deliberately kill his brother. He just wolfed out. He slipped out of the crypt one night.
Yeah.
And he was just a random victim as far as the wolf knew.
Oops.
Yeah. He didn't really mean to kill his son, but he not too broke up about it either.
No, Ben was going to marry some girl, and he didn't like it, so he sort of let himself out of the cage. He did kill him on purpose. It was not an accident.
It was accidentally on purpose.
I was going to lose him either way, so...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So Sir John is starting to really embrace the wolf side of his personality. He's done this for decades, and he has Mr. Singh lock him up and take care of him and hide him out.
Except for occasional treats when he gets
Occasionally he
free.
got out, but not very often. He kept it very under control until this thing with Ben, and then he decided, this tastes pretty good. And he started letting himself out more regularly.
Yeah.
That and from the condition of the house, you get the idea maybe his mind is slipping a little bit. He's losing it. And the wolf has taken over. Could be Alzheimer's or something, and the wolf is beside the point, but he's not quite himself anymore.
What's worse than a werewolf? A werewolf with Alzheimer's.
I seem to remember I did something last month. What was that?
Yeah.
The doctor at the asylum then ties Larry to a chair in the surgical theater in front of dozens of medical students.
We're going to prove to you that it's just a delusion as you watch through the window and see the full moon rise. And
They got their proof. Yeah, that's definitely the best scene of the movie.
Yes.
They want to see what happens when this mentally unstable man changes. The doctor thinks nothing will happen.
Yeah, it's just in his mind.
The doctor
this is going to prove to him that it's just in your mind. Yeah.
The doctor is in for a surprise as Talbot changes for real. He kills a bunch of doctors and then escapes into downtown London.
Mm-hmm.
The inspector chases the werewolf across the rooftops, but finally loses him in the depths of the city.
Cool chase scene.
Yeah. It's kind of like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen with Hyde running across the roofs.
Yeah, a little
very
bit.
similarly done.
Uh-huh. Not too realistic, but very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CGI, clearly.
A lot of it.
He wakes up in Gwen's shop and tells her everything. She wants him to stay there in London with her, but he insists on going back to Talbot Hall. He has loose ends to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
The police show up and take Gwen away. For her own protection, supposedly. As Larry roams the streets of London, Gwen starts researching lycanthropism. You know, the 1890s libraries were just full of books on that.
Oh, yeah.
Pre-internet. Books had everything. Yeah. Larry eventually makes his way back home. Gwen meets up with Mileva the gypsy, who says Gwen must set him free. Father and son then confront each other. They both start to change at the same time, and they fight epically.
And it's a pretty good battle scene.
It's a good battle, yeah.
Yeah, that was entertaining.
But the young wolf wins just as Gwen and the inspector show up. Gwen runs off with the werewolf hot on her heels, and the inspector limps behind them, wounded. After much angst, she finally shoots him in the heart with a silver bullet. The inspector catches up, holding his bleeding chest wound.
Mm-hmm.
How'd he get wounded?
Uh-huh. From a werewolf bite.
The movie looks great. The scenery, sets, and costumes are perfect at setting the mood. One of the best-looking movies we've seen.
Big budget. They spent a lot of money on it.
A lot of CGI budget.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In the original movie, Larry Talbot seemed like a normal guy thrown into a bad situation. This Larry is just creepy, weird, and moody right from the beginning.
He's artistic. He's an actor.
In the original, Sir John Talbot was respectable, intelligent, reasonable, and very helpful.
Not so much in this one.
In this one, Anthony Hopkins is weird and malevolent even before we find out he's the werewolf. Both characters were over-the-top weird from the get-go, and I think that hurts the movie since you can't really relate to either of them. These are some bad people. I find it hard to believe that of the 100 or so people killed in this movie, that they all died.
Mm-hmm.
No one was simply wounded to carry on the legacy.
No.
Obviously, the inspector is going to be having trouble next month, but could he really be the only one?
Apparently so. They even mentioned that. Oh, they all died.
Yeah.
Yeah, they even mentioned that specifically. Yeah.
You figure like there's somebody in the doctor's office just stabbing him to death just to make sure.
Yeah.
This kind of flopped at the box office, and Universal's return to the classic monsters failed on the first attempt. Mm-hmm. And I suspect a lot of that falls on Benicio del Toro, who I totally thought was miscast. It looked great, but most of the parts were too eccentric and too overacted. The effects were great, the scenery was great, the acting and the characters were not. And you disagree?
I disagree.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought the characters... Well, again, it was a second viewing, too, though.
I liked the original. Larry was a nice guy who you're kind of rooting for. He's a good guy thrown into this weird situation. And here he's just this...
Actor.
Actors are not all like that.
No, but he's an actor guy from 1891. And, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well...
Yeah. All in all, a thumbs up from me.
It looked really good.
Big thumbs up.
I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
I'd give it an 8.
And I'll go 9 out of 10 on the original.
I'd go a 7.5 on the original.
All right.
Just because this one is better.
And with these numbers that we're giving you, if you check out the website, horrorguys.com, up at the top there is a review grid.
We need to update that.
We do. And you can see every movie we have ever done with the name of the movie, the link to the written article, the link to the video, the link to the audio, and my number and Kevin's number. And you can see how we had somebody just the other day ask us what was the best movies we'd seen. And we very easily could look up the 2 10 of 10s.
Cabin in the Woods was one of them.
Yeah. Train to Busan was another one.
Altered was one for me.
Yeah. And then, of course, we both recommended Possession from... It's on the bottom of the list.
Not so much.
So
Suspiria.
Yeah. So on this list of movies that we reviewed, we also have our list of shorts. And as usual, we saw a short this week.
Called Nun.
Nun. N-U-N. Not The Nun or A Nun or Nun, N-O-N-E. It's N-U-N from 2017. Make it easy to find. Use the link in the show notes. A couple kisses and the man goes inside. He picks up his newspaper, which we see that it's in German, but it really doesn't matter because there's no dialogue. He picks up his newspaper and there's a knock at the door. He sees a dark shape in his backyard. It kind of looks like a nun in a habit. All you see is a black shadow.
And there's nobody at the door.
Yeah.
He goes to the door.
The power goes off and he gets glimpses of the thing behind him several times, just real quickly. He gets himself locked in the basement and his flashlight dies. The nun gets him.
Spoilers. Well,
it's a horror movie with one actor.
But it's kind of...
You know it's coming.
Actually, you go ahead and say your note, because that's what I was going to say.
It's short and well shot. It looks very good, very professionally done. But once again, it's more of a scene than a story. We get no background, no explanation, no imaginable reason whatsoever for what happens. Why was there a killer undead nun in this guy's basement? Did he do something? It's there. It happened.
We
Why?
don't know.
I don't know.
We don't know. It was good.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. No story.
5 of 5. It looks good, but there's no substance there.
Or all style, no substance. That's the expression. Yeah.
I don't want to be that negative about it, but if there had been a story,
All chain,
some
no,
kind of explanation.
all chain, no clank.
All right. Well, which takes us to our drive-in special for the week. The Devil's Rejects from 2005 by Rob Zombie. Stars Sid Haig, Sherry Moon Zombie. Oh, I just got connected. That's just Rob Zombie. She's Mrs. Zombie?
Yes.
I just now connected that. I didn't notice
That's his
that.
lady friend. Yes.
I was going to say, oh, look, a zombie. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
And Bill Moseley.
Mm-hmm.
Sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses, which we'll be reviewing next week.
See, I wonder if I should have seen House of a Thousand Corpses first.
It's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
Yeah, in the beginning, it's some of the people. You saw in the beginning where they recap, they find the house with all the dead bodies in it.
Yeah.
That's all you need to know.
Okay.
So if you haven't seen House of a Thousand Corpses, it's okay to watch this first. It's not a crucial prequel
Because
or
that
anything.
recap covers everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
We start out with a heavily disfigured man dragging a naked dead girl through the woods. He pauses when he sees a bunch of police cars heading towards his house. They all drive up to the Firefly Ranch and get out, armed and ready to storm the place.
That was Tiny dragging the body.
Yeah, we find later that his name is Tiny, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriff Wydell gets on the PA and announces that they have no escape. Come out with your hands up. And he's wearing his big old cowboy hat, and he's got his sheriff's badge. He's like a cowboy kind of guy.
It's set in 1978. I don't know if you mentioned that.
You can tell by the cars, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no internet, so no cell phones. Other than that, I don't know that it's too important what year it takes place, other than it is, period. You can tell by looking.
Mm-hmm.
Inside, everyone scrambles to load their weapons. They were all asleep. They put on metal face masks for protection and start shooting. Everybody starts shooting.
Yeah, everybody.
The cops break in and start shooting, but the bad guy's armor protects most of them.
And
Otis,
they've got a lot of guns.
they're
bullets.
well armed. Otis and Baby escape, but their mother is captured by the sheriff. And one of the brothers dies.
Mm-hmm.
I assume it's one of the brothers. I don't know who he was.
Yeah, I think it was.
One of the bad guys gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
There are photos of a clown that the sheriff recognizes as Captain Spaulding. He was not in the house. Spaulding is sitting at home watching all of it on the news when Baby calls him to warn him about the cops. Spaulding calls his friend Charlie at the whorehouse, and he wants to go hide there. Spaulding steals a car. "What's the matter, kid? You don't like clowns?" As he steals a car and throws out the people that are in it.
And threatens to kill the child. And,
Yeah, the mother, and come back and kill your whole family later.
Yeah.
And the kid's like 4. The whole movie is very graphic and very brutal, but it's got these little funny bits in it.
Yeah, and that's one of them.
Yeah,
And I clung to those funny bits, like a survivor of a shipwreck clinging to floating wreckage.
I think I smell a dislike here. Otis and Baby take a group of traveling singers hostage. Otis shoots one and rapes another. He then takes 2 male prisoners out to a remote warehouse to dig up some guns, but ends up killing both of them. He says, "I am the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's work." And he cuts off one of the guy's faces and brings it home with him.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back at the motel, Baby kills one of the women, and the other escapes, running right into the arms of Spaulding. Help me, there's crazy people, and he takes her right back.
Yeah, he's one of them. Yeah.
Otis returns, bearing the face of one of the men. He puts it on the remaining survivor, and they leave her there, tied up in the room, until she escapes and is run over by a truck. It's one of those, runs out into the road, boom! You see it coming a mile away kind of things.
Yeah, you saw that coming as soon as she's on the road. Yeah.
Yeah. The sheriff dreams about his brother, who is murdered by the Devil's Rejects, what they call this group of people now. He gets the Unholy Two, played by Danny Trejo, and Diamond Dallas Page, the wrestling guy, to hunt them down. He kills Mother Firefly in her cell. Spaulding, Otis, and Baby drive to Charlie's. The next morning, Charlie and Cleavon, and Charlie is Ken Forey, who we've seen in some things, and Cleavon is Michael Berryman, who is perfect in this as sort of a little henchman kind of assistant.
Henchman kind of guy. Yeah, he is perfect.
Charlie and Cleavon have the greatest scene in the movie when they go to buy some chickens. While they're there,
I'm laughing just thinking about it.
The sheriff drives up and orders Charlie to turn the other 3 guys over to him at midnight.
You're not even going to mention. Well, we can't.
Don't spoil it.
Yeah, okay.
The chicken scene is worth the movie alone.
Yes, it is.
It does. Yeah. The Unholy Two track down the group for the sheriff, and the sheriff shows up at the appointed time. He captures the whole family and then drives them back to the Firefly Ranch. He ties them up and tortures all 3 of them. He releases Baby and then sets the house on fire with Spaulding and Otis inside. Charlie shows up and helps Baby briefly, but the sheriff hacks him apart with an axe. At this point, the sheriff is as bad as the other guys. The sheriff has her pinned down and starts choking her to death when Tiny, the disfigured man from the opening scene, shows up.
What's the expression? Deus ex machina?
Deus ex, wrinkled, deformed monster guy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's been lurking around. But,
totally forgot he was in it. Nobody's mentioned him, but he's been hanging around since the beginning.
Yeah, he comes to her rescue.
So then Tiny also rescues Otis and Spaulding from the fire. It's a happy ending. Well, at least until they run into a roadblock of a dozen police cars, deputies, and cops.
Yeah, and then that's not so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you basically, it's jerky footage of you see them all getting killed. You do see them getting shot.
Yeah.
Well, let me go first, because I think yours is going to be more entertaining than mine.
No, not really. No. I'll just add to comments here.
William Forsythe, as the sheriff, is awesome. He doesn't even pretend that he's trying to take him into custody. He even yells at himself in the mirror. He's that much of a badass. He's out for blood. I did like the way the family gets along when they're alone, and the scene with the ice cream debate could be anyone. Tutti frutti.
Yeah, tutti frutti.
The chicken scene is so out of the blue and so out of place that it's easily the hardest I've ever laughed in the theater. I saw this in the theaters.
Okay.
The complete brutality of the movie is what really makes the comic scenes work. And if you like the really vicious... Like, we did Cannibal Holocaust a few months ago, and we both kind of hated it because it was excessively violent. This is excessively violent, too, but it's got just enough humor and taste in it to make it entertaining, I thought.
And a good soundtrack.
And I didn't notice the soundtrack.
Really good soundtrack.
Okay.
Yeah. Good song choices. And music.
So I do recommend it. I will call it a 7 out of 10. If you like violence, gore, and bad stuff. And you are...
Maybe a 5.
Okay.
The humor scenes, I loved Captain Spaulding with when he would start ranting, but there wasn't enough of his stuff, and the scenes were long and drawn out, I thought, excessively, and
Otis.
I didn't. Oh, most of the time, I was a little bit bored, actually.
Okay. Otis.
Yeah.
Every time I see an Otis, we've been watching Swamp Thing on TV, the 2019 Swamp Thing series.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I saw Otis, I couldn't help but see Will Patton with long hair. They have very similar faces and voices. And I'm just picturing old man Sunderland there with long hair.
Yeah, kind of.
And that's really not what anybody was going for, but there's a similarity there.
Yeah. You know, I was impressed by it. Was kind of a sobering, unhappy moment when I realized how they aged him up for Swamp Thing. Patton.
Well, he is getting older, isn't he?
And then I realized, oh, he's just old now.
Okay, yeah.
They didn't age him up. I hadn't seen him in anything in a long time. I think maybe like The Postman might have been the last thing I saw him in.
Oh, that has been a while.
I don't know. Was Armageddon after that?
Yeah, about the same time.
Yeah.
So anyway,
anyway,
just a hint of things to come.
Yeah.
We recently watched the original Swamp Thing movie, the second Swamp Thing movie, quite a bit of the 1980s Swamp Thing TV series, and of course the 2019 Swamp Thing series. We've got 2 more episodes of the Swamp Thing series to talk about, and we will have a special all Swamp Thing episode coming up soon. Maybe just for subscribers. We'll see. Maybe it'll be a regular episode.
Yeah.
We'll find out. Depends on how the series ends.
So anyway, I definitely had mixed feelings on this. I felt a little bit disappointed. I expected to like it more than I did. And
considering just how brutal and violent and nasty it is, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
No, okay.
There's no supernatural in this movie. It's simply a bunch of violent, ultra-violent, crazy people.
But that's Rob Zombie for you.
Yeah.
He took all the supernatural out of Halloween. He's a party pooper on supernatural
Real
stuff.
monsters aren't imaginary.
No, real monsters are people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of real monsters who are people, our international film this time is called Revenge from 2017.
Set in Australia.
And I liked this a lot more than I thought I would.
Me too. Yeah.
Although there were some serious plot holes.
There's some issues.
Written and directed by Coralie Fargeet, I'm going to say.
Go with
Stars Matilda Lutz, Kevin Janssens, and Vincent Clome. And you can get this one from Amazon. We'll have a link below.
Not a very well-known movie, I don't think.
No.
2017, fairly new.
Yeah, fairly.
Yeah.
Mostly English. There are some subtitles, and there's a whole lot of it where there's no dialogue at all.
They're French-Canadian.
So if you hate subtitles, it's probably worth this one just to deal with a little bit anyway. Because there's not that much.
No, there's not. The majority is in English.
Yeah. The majority of it, there's no talking.
Yeah.
We open on a helicopter flying over the Australian desert. Richard and Jen are aboard. The pilot gets back in the copter and flies away after giving Richard a package of something. We don't know what it is. The two get naked and busy, and later that night the man gets a phone call from his wife, and there's a child crying in the background. It's one of those trips.
Jen is the other woman.
The next morning, the girl is startled when Stan and Dimitri, 2 men with hunting rifles, show up at the door.
And how did they get there? We don't know.
We don't know.
They didn't fly in.
It could have been landed at a distance, or they could have drove in.
Yeah.
There is a car there. Later on,
Yeah,
Stan's driving around in a car. They may have driven in.
No, that was all at the house already.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
They show up.
They show up.
We don't know from where.
Yeah.
Richard explains that they weren't supposed to be there this early. They weren't supposed to see Jen. Still, that night, they all party and seem to have a lot of fun. There's a mention that the copter pilot handed Richard some peyote, which the guys want to try, but he gives it to Jen to hide for him. She flirts with all 3 guys pretty much equally.
She hides it in her locket.
In her little locket, yes. In the morning, Jen wakes up to find Richard has gone off to see the gamekeeper, which will take several hours. Got to buy the hunting license.
Talk about not planning ahead.
The guy showed up early. I mean, he was probably planning on doing this then anyway.
Well, yeah, probably. Yeah.
Dimitri has a hangover, so it's just Jen and Stan alone. And it's clear from that night that Stan's got a little bit of a crush on her.
Well, she was
flirting heavily with all of them.
Flirting heavily with all of them, and Stan really misinterpreted.
Yeah. She's a little creeped out and goes to start packing. He follows her into the bedroom and comes on to her, unsuccessfully. It gets pretty awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Dimitri stumbles into the room just as Stan starts raping Jen. Dimitri takes another bite of his snack, backs out of the room, and lets Stan get on with it.
Yeah,
he just goes out and turns on the
Stan's
TV.
basically like, join me or get out, and Dimitri gets out.
Yeah. Richard returns in a couple hours.
And Dimitri had a moment when he could have redeemed himself. He heard the sounds of struggle from the room, and he pauses, and he looks uncomfortable. He doesn't go back in to stop it. He turns up the television, which was already playing, but he turns the sound up.
His chance of redemption is gone.
And yeah, so there's no redemption there.
Richard returns. Stan says there's a problem with Jen. Richard and Stan shout at each other. I mean, this wasn't planned.
Yeah, Jen doesn't seem to be physically injured. She's curled up in bed and understandably angry. Wants to leave, wants to go now. Call the helicopter. I want to leave now. Now.
She's been raped.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as physical, I mean, she wasn't physically injured from.
Keep digging that hole.
I'm just saying. She's fine.
There's not a mark on her.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go with that one.
Yes, there's no visible signs.
So Richard
she was clearly. I'm not saying she wasn't raped. She was. No.
Dig that hole.
I'm not digging.
Send him the emails. Richard offers her money and a plane ticket to Canada. She can start her life over if she wants.
Oh, not just that, a job, too. A high-paying job. Because all three of these guys
they're all
rich business guys. And she's going to have a prime career and cushy and set up for life. And she says, no.
She tells Richard to call the helicopter or she'll call his wife and tell her everything. Mm-hmm. He slaps her and she runs off into the desert, barefoot, with all three men in pursuit.
And she manages to outrun them, barefoot. They've got shoes on.
Yeah.
In the terrain, like rough, rocky.
Well, they do catch up
terrain.
to her.
Yeah, well, because she comes up against a cliff and she can't run any further.
They close in on her at the cliff. Richard calls for the helicopter and moves in close to Jen to help her away from the edge. He reaches out and pushes her off the cliff. Surprise!
Yeah.
And he didn't really call a copter.
No.
She falls hundreds of feet and gets impaled on a tree. Floop, right through her belly.
I don't know if it was hundreds of feet.
It looked like a long way down.
Many feet. Tens of feet.
Far enough to die.
Yeah.
The three men plan to continue their hunting trip as planned and clean up the mess on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime later, Jen wakes up with a tree stump stuck all the way through her. She's like impaled on a tree. It's stuck right through her.
Mm-hmm.
She really has been seriously impaled. She reaches for her iPod headphones, which she then uses to drag a lighter over to her hand. She then reaches down and sets the tree on fire beneath her.
It's not a standard tree. It's a dried up. Is it? Saguaro? I don't know if they have saguaros in. It's not saguaro, but it's a dried up, brittle old thing.
Yeah.
That's very fingery and stuff. So it will be crumbly, and I think that was maybe not totally unrealistic. Because it would be crumbly and
if I'm stuck in a tree, I'm not going to set the base on fire. Well, she didn't have a lot of choices.
She didn't have a lot of choices. Yeah.
The tree burns just enough that it breaks under her weight. She almost passes out from the pain, but she hears the engine of the men's car approaching.
Up above, and she's down below.
The men return and don't find her. It gets dark by the time they find a trail of blood, which they follow until it hits the river. Richard and Dimitri split off to check the riverbank, while Stan stays behind in the car.
I think it was a little lake.
Okay.
An Oasis lake. I don't think it was a river.
Yeah, because they find Dimitri on the other side later.
They are able to go all the way around.
Okay. Dimitri drives right past her. She sneaks up behind him and grabs his gun. It's not loaded.
Psych.
It's his trick. He knew she was going to be there. She grabs his knife, though, and stabs him in the eyes.
Yeah, he thinks he's being so smart by laying out the gun as a
bait,
and completely forgets that as he's throttling her, undunking her, that he's got a knife right there, a big old hunting knife, which she grabs and uses. Yeah.
One down.
Yeah.
Jen finds a cave and starts a fire. She goes through Dimitri's backpack and finds a few supplies. She's still got a huge tree branch stuck through her belly. She fought off Dimitri. She's run through the desert. She's got this thing still all the way through her.
But not hurting her too much now.
Yeah.
Well, over
I'm
time,
sure it feels good.
Well, over time, it bothers her less and less.
She eats the peyote, and it has the expected effect. It's time now for some self-surgery. She cuts up a beer can with the hunting knife and cuts out the tree stump still sticking through her. She heats up the beer can and cauterizes the wound, at least the one on the front that we see,
Yeah.
and then passes out.
Mm-hmm.
Stan then wakes up in the car in the morning, goes down to the river to pee. He finds Dimitri's body there.
Freaks out, throws up. Yeah.
Yeah, Stan's kind of a weenie.
Kinda. Yeah.
Jen wakes up, and now she has a phoenix print brand where the hole used to be. The beer can had a phoenix on it, so
a phoenix, yeah.
symbolism.
Symbolism, you know.
Otherwise, she looks pretty healthy, although we never see her fix the hole in her back. And for some reason, her hair is darker now.
we both noticed that. It's like, what?
She packs
it's darker now.
She packs up Dimitri's gun, ammo, and supplies, then heads off in search of some revenge.
Mm-hmm.
She spots Stan's car on the road, and she follows him, barefoot and nearly naked, through the desert. You know, if it's 100 degrees, the pavement usually will burn your feet in like 2 seconds.
Not to
I imagine
mention,
the desert sands are
rocky, rough,
Gravel,
gravelly. Yeah. She just does fine barefoot. Yeah.
She sniper shoots him in the shoulder and then follows his blood trail. Stan manages to get behind her and shoots at her, but his hand shakes and all he hits is her earlobe. Boom! Blows her earring right off into the dirt.
Owie. Yeah.
She gets her revenge on Stan in a gruesome and painful manner. 2 down, and she takes his car.
Mm-hmm.
Richard waits at the rendezvous point all day, then heads home. He calls for the helicopter to pick him up in half an hour. He gets undressed and takes a shower. He hears something outside. He goes to investigate, but
it could be.
No one is there. He goes back inside, and there she is.
Mm-hmm.
She shoots him in the belly, but he's not dead. After losing an insane amount of blood, he catches her.
You finally got to the blood part. Mentioning the blood.
All these deaths are really bloody.
Well, the amount of blood they lose is
Especially in the
unrealistic.
third battle.
Yeah, third battle, but all of them. The trails of
Oh, her
blood
running
they're
through the
leaving
desert
and-
with a tree stuck through her?
Yeah, well, and you know, she wakes up and she's, you know, drizzling blood and has been, and yeah, just the amount of blood they lose is unrealistic.
Well, she finally punches him in the wound, and then as he recoils in pain, she blows him in half with a shotgun. 3 down.
3 down.
The end.
Mm-hmm.
The scenery in this is amazing. From the trailer, I had assumed the 3 men lured her out there to rape and murder her as a plan.
No,
But it
wasn't
really
the
all
plan.
just sort of happens unintentionally. It just evolves organically.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 men don't start off as troublemakers, but clearly they're not great guys.
But they're turds.
yeah.
Yeah.
The gore effects are good, as is the peyote sequence. There's maybe a little too much blood. Okay, there's a lot too much blood.
A lot of blood.
Any injury that left blood trails like these would have been fatal.
Mm-hmm.
The makeup on dead Dimitri was impressive, and what happens with Stan's foot is pretty horrible to watch as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's some wince-worthy woundings in this. Yeah.
It's The movie has a ton of violence and gore, and some of it is beyond believable, but it is very entertaining.
And
I
an
thought.
amazing house. Yeah, I liked the desert house.
I like the house
Yeah,
too.
the hunting cabin, I guess it was. Whatever.
It's a fancy cabin.
Yeah, very nice.
So I'll go 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I would too.
It's got some logic issues to it, and certainly some medical issues to it. But It was fun to watch.
And why was it a horror movie? It's
Because of the blood and the gore.
It's just a bloody action movie.
Well, why was The Devil's Rejects a horror movie? It's nothing but blood and gore too. But there's
It is a fine line.
It doesn't have to be supernatural. I mean, sometimes it's just gore and murders and killing. And you're right, though. This is barely horror. It's much more of an action revenge
John
movie.
Wick wasn't a.
This would be
wasn't a
right
horror movie.
right in a league with John Wick, definitely.
Yeah. I don't know. It just didn't strike me as horror.
The over-the-top detailed violence, probably.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, good.
Beats The Invisible
It's
Woman.
good. It's good. It looks good. Everybody's good in it.
Yeah, everybody's
Yeah.
good. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
The three men are very appropriately cast.
Yeah.
The woman is believable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
She
good.
is. Yeah.
So out of 4 movies and a short, they're all good this week.
They were.
No, we didn't have
Yeah.
any stinkers this time.
Didn't hate everything. Didn't hate
Didn't
anything.
hate everything.
Didn't hate everything.
Didn't hate anything.
I almost hated, the Devil's
Rejects.
Rejects, but not. I wouldn't call it hate.
Okay.
I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed.
Maybe we can find some trash to watch next week. And that's our show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Stop in during the week at horrorbulletin.com for news and horror updates, to comment on the podcast, or to contact us. Now, next week, we'll be watching the Universal Studio flick, The Invisible Agent from 1942.
More invisible things.
Was Invisible that scary, or was it just low budget?
I think it was a trope they figured out.
They certainly are, yeah.
Hey, this makes money. Let's have more invisible things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The classic X the Unknown from 1956. We did all 3 Quatermass movies a couple of weeks ago. Now this one is sort of the same thing, which we'll talk about next week.
The Quatermass that never was.
And because you didn't see it already, we're also going to watch The House of a Thousand Corpses from 2003.
In the wrong order. Yeah. But there's another one coming out.
But there is, yes.
It'll
they're
be a
working on it.
trilogy. Yeah.
And our international feature is Eyes Without a Face from 1960.
I'm looking forward to that.
Give those a watch this week and see if your opinion matches ours. Check out our Twitter feed at Horror Bulletin, and check out the website horrorguys.com, where you can see all our old YouTube videos, listen to all the audio episodes, check out all the reviews are in writing also, and you can see our ratings as well. horrorguys.com. I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Dun, 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 dun. That's not even our theme song.
I didn't recognize what that was.